So yeah, if anyone else has any thoughts on that.
I'm still trying to get some more speakers in here. Oh, Seth, are you a speaker now?
Yeah, looks like I was able to get back in. It's
Perfect.
weird. You have to
so I'll do a quick intro and then Seth will hand it over to you. So yeah, at the moment with the Comet Network stuff, it is very much a process where a taker needs to find a maker. And so the way you can think about it is that at the moment, a maker has Monero that they are selling and say, hey, we'll sell it at this price. Someone with Bitcoin comes up and says, yes, I agree to buy that Monero at that price. And the taker will hand over the Bitcoin partially, I mean, through a non-trusted way, or a way that doesn't require trust. And then they'll finish swap. So that's the way it has to work right now. Although of course, Comet Network is working on expanding the functionality, and Farcaster is also trying to do an expanded functionality. So that's just the limitation at the moment. So it's important that people understand. And so on the wallet side, of course, you're going to have some way for people to find others that are offering to sell their Monero. Of course, it's almost like a Samurai wallet user will need to find like a Moneronews user that is actually in the process of wanting to sell, or they'll just more realistically go to a website where there's a service that is offering to sell Monero, for example.
I understand too, like I think Comet have talked in the past, I think it's on Monero Talk, but I think they talked in the past that they have a market maker that will be running for this. So I think there will be some entities that will want to be market makers for the atomic swap process. So there'll be partners that you can expect to be up generally, almost always online and trade withable. It's not a word, but so I would expect that it's not going to just be a random person with Monero or Cake Wallet or Samurai Wallet, but I'm sure there will be some market makers that want to get in on the action as well. I'm sure there will be some premiums over centralized exchanges that they can arbitrage, assuming they're comfortable with using a centralized exchange. So I'm sure there will be services like that. And the nice thing with atomic swaps is you don't need to care if the other person is malicious or dangerous or untrusted, whatever. You know that the swap is going to go through or it's not, and you can trust that the actual blockchains are going to handle the trustlessness of that. You don't need to rely on trust in that other person. So it's important to remember as well.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. I had another question come in from Hector Cardenas, which says, how much privacy will Taproot effectively add to Bitcoin? And I just responded just saying, in the grand scheme of things, very little. Taproot alone doesn't really add that much. It's obviously better than not having it. If it's take it or leave it, I'll take it. But it's certainly not like a broad, comprehensive solution. Welcome back, Jill.
Thanks for letting me back in.
Yeah, I was trying. It's a bit of a weird process still. I had to send that DM with like I don't know how it exactly ends up working, but welcome back.
Cheers. What happened earlier? Do you know?
Twitter Spaces, my phone just stopped working on the accounts, and so it just kind of kicked everybody off. So unfortunate, but we're back. Clearly some kinks to resolve here. But we're still going. We'll continue going for quite some time. So again, if you have any questions, you can leave them with the hashtag #MoneroSpace.
I can add a comment on the Schnorr Taproot question.
Go ahead.
So I mentioned it earlier, but we got disconnected, and I'm sure there's new people on. But the nice thing with Schnorr is, understanding it will aid in privacy for atomic swap, specifically Bitcoin. So as far as I understand it, and I could be wrong on this, but my understanding is that atomic swaps, after Schnorr is integrated, will appear as if they are any other regular single sig Bitcoin transaction. So that'll help to obfuscate the Bitcoin side of it, which is important. As far as just general privacy, I mean, the vast majority of people, their privacy will not be improved by Schnorr Taproot. The main people that gain from it are people who use multi-sig in Bitcoin, because if you adopt Schnorr SIGs and you use multi-sig, you can make those transactions appear indistinguishable from single sig. Schnorr transactions, which can be nice. It hides a little bit of what's going on. And then also channel opens and close and Lightning benefit from Schnorr signatures in the same way as multi-sig. So there's some advantages, but it's completely opt-in, so people have to choose to use it. And if very few people choose to use it, you add the heuristic of you're using Schnorr, which could be used to fingerprint you or the wallet you're using. There's a lot of issues that come along with that. So it's definitely an advantage. It's not massive, but it is good to see that improvement. And it does lay the building blocks for potential future privacy improvements, but unfortunately, it's pretty small on its own, and the longer we go with the current narratives around Bitcoin, the less likely it is that big privacy improvements happen at layer one.
Thanks, Seth. And I also want to welcome Simon here. Simon, of course, is someone who has been very, very active on the Clubhouse side, not just in the Monero Clubhouse, but also has a Bitcoin coffee Clubhouse. Hey, Simon.
Hey, everybody. This is so cool. I cannot believe how many people are here. This is awesome. Thanks for inviting me, Kim.
Yeah, was the invite able to go through okay? I sent you, I think, a Twitter DM, and you had to like click on that or something. Do you want to describe how you got on?
Yeah, I got Kim sent me a message on Twitter, and then I clicked on it, and that was that. I had to install the Twitter app, which I don't like to do, but I did it because I love you guys. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm surprised.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for doing that. I feel like you're probably in the minority though for not having the Twitter app in the cryptocurrency space. I feel like the whole point is to have 24/7 access anywhere to complain about things. Isn't that the point of Twitter?
Right, exactly. No, I mean, I try to use just for privacy. There are privacy, value kind of thing, and so if you trying to access stuff through the browser, if there's browser versions available, I usually try to do that. Yeah, but whatever, all good. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, awesome. I had two questions that came in with the Monero space hashtag. The first one is, if two people send transactions in the same block, who actually wins the swap? So that's a good question. I think that comes from the idea of people trying to do AMM type swaps on Ethereum. It is actually not that at all. So this is like a 1-to-1 trade where they're locked in. So worst thing that anybody can do is basically to not go for the trade, and then you eventually get your money back. So it's not the case that someone can like run your swap, so to speak, or the stereotypical rug pull on Uniswap. It's a very, very different stuff. You have distinct makers and takers. You do not have liquidity pool. So pros and cons, but no, you don't need to worry about the front running. Thanks for your question. Vanjaft, I don't know, Vanjaft, but I appreciate that. Another question, the Meatman 1312 came in saying they're pretty new to crypto. If Monero got adopted shop, so the person just wait in the shop till the confirmation confirms. Good question. Mike, do you want to try answering one?
One more time for the question.
Sure. They said if Monero was adopted and someone was working at a shop, do you need to wait for confirmation to actually like buy coffee, or is it okay just to zero conf for like a coffee?
I'm pretty sure you can get away with like one, just so it proves that something happened, and then you should be fine.
Yeah, good point. Anyone else here have ideas of accepting payments? I know, Mike, you of course run a business that does accept Monero, so that's good to have your perspective. But I think largely maybe wait for one confirm, but
yeah, I would always wait for one at least.
Yeah, you don't wait the 60 days though for whatever it takes to finalize a credit card transaction, right?
It's definitely way faster.
Yeah, you could have chargebacks for like 2 months. People aren't sitting around waiting at McDonald's for 2 months to get their food, right? Maybe they do. Maybe they do. I don't know, but I think most people consider it kind of weird if they did.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two sides to it. So you could do zero conf, and you could just say, as long as my node, the merchant, sees the transaction, you're good to go. I'll start working on your order or whatever. Especially in like food service, that would work well because, say you order, you're waiting for them to make coffee or make your order, that kind of thing. They can wait for one conf or whatever during that time frame and only give you your food after that passes. But for most use cases, zero conf is going to be fine for that kind of thing when it's a small sum. It does. I mean, it's a little weird coming from like the credit card space where they have guarantees from the credit card company they're going to get their money one way or another. So it's definitely different, but they get the money directly after 0 to 1 confirmations, and then they can spend it after 10, which is a huge step forward from having to wait, like you mentioned, 36 days plus to actually be able to get their money and use it. So there are advantages, but it's a little bit painful for merchants. And I think in Monero, a lot of people just kind of don't talk about or don't focus on layer 2 solutions because layer 1 is fine. It's not overused. We're not struggling with a fee crisis. We're not struggling with full blocks, things like that. And there's a lot of measures in Monero to deal with scaling to short-term demand. But I think long-term, I mean, we're going to see some second layer solution to do payments. And those second layer solutions are going to operate kind of like a credit card where, I mean, obviously people understand Lightning Network would understand, but that concept of you see the money immediately and then you have finality on the chain, on the layer 1 chain at some point down the line whenever you settle. So I'm sure something like Lightning Network or a similar layer 2 in the future will be how people generally transact, but layer 1 works great right now. 0-1 conf, normally fine.
Yeah, on a related note, I'm just curious. So anybody who's left like their Monero D open for a long periods of time have seen block reorgs in the CLI kind of output, whatever text output. And I'm just curious for people who, so the question of like how many block confirmations to wait for a cup of coffee is a really interesting one. Does anybody know if there's any statistics out there about like, you know, how many blocks are actually like unwound because of block reorgs? Does anybody know that? Because that could help inform, you know, how rare it would be for a coffee purchase have, you know, for somebody to get a free cup of coffee, right?
That's a good question. I don't have these numbers handy. I do know that they were looked into. Monero has a 10 block unlock time, which obviously is a pretty unfortunate user experience drawback where once you receive money, you need to wait 10 blocks before you can spend it. That's there for a variety of reasons, but the Monero Research Lab was looking at, you know, why, you know, is this a good number, for example, right? They just wanted to justify or bad or make a correction. And so I think it was Isthmus from the Nonsensus Research Lab who started looking, he collected data from dozens of Monero nodes in order to look at the reorg time over many, many months. And it was really this huge ongoing project. And I think, you know, at the moment it's being kept at 10, but weren't, like, there are certainly some reorgs that are long, as you can imagine, but not often. I think once you get past like 1 or 2, you're getting like 2 or 3 standard deviations away range, which is probably fine for coffee. But I mean, it really just depends on what someone feels comfortable with at the end of the day. So, I would say if you want to be super cautious, waiting 2 is fine. If you're buying a house, by all means, wait a few extra blocks. But I don't know. It depends mostly on user comfort, I would say. So I'm sorry I don't have the exact numbers handy, but that'd be a good thing if you want to have another call with Isthmus or something. He's a really great guy for knowing those sorts of things.
Yeah, I wonder like the community could publish like a, you know, sort of document, maybe on Monero Outreach could be done or something, but they could basically say like, okay, you know, here's the confirmation times based on the amount of the purchase. So if you're buying like a 99-cent, you know, cup of black coffee, like it's okay to do it on 0 cost because you're, you know, what's your cost of,
let's say there's 1 conf,
you know, what's the cost of the person selling the coffee? A quarter. So in the rare, like let's say there's 1 conf per day or 1 reorg per day, and then they you know, they hypothetically have a whatever 1 out of 1,000 chance of losing a quarter. That's not a big deal, and then they could kind of scale up from there. So if you're buying a VP for a year, you might want to wait like, I don't know, 5 or something, you know, and just from there. That would be kind of interesting to me, but maybe I'm overthinking this.
Well, what I can say, if I remember correctly, xmr.to, which isn't around anymore, but I think they allow users to deposit up to 10 BTC in Monero, and they would send it after 1 confirmation, I believe. which is honestly pretty nuts. But that was the level of comfort they had at the time, which is obviously a lot of money, but they clearly had a lot of, I don't know if it was for the sake of the best user experience or what, but they obviously had a lot of confidence in the Monero network there.
By the way, Yannick, it's really cool to hear your voice, man. I've seen your smaller participation in the Monero community for a while, so it's fun to put a voice to a handle.
You too, by the way. I love your thoughts on Monero. I haven't seen you around though. I mean, I just recently ran you a couple of months ago. When did you get involved with Monero?
I'm like Darkwing Duck. I'm in the shadows. No,
do you have a pseudonym that we don't know about?
Yeah, I've had a bunch of. I don't know. I'm somebody. Whatever. You know, I've had a bunch of handles back in the day. I mean, whatever. Probably the one that you might remember the most was Monero Eric. It would have been in around 2016. I produced like a video to help people like install the official GUI when it came out and whatever.
Monero Eric and Gus.
That's right. That was me. So
that's awesome.
He had his sloth sidekick teaching the world about Monero. It was a fun project for like a week, but.
Well, I mean, sometimes you have to dox yourself a little bit to get a sense of community going. You know.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I love all the anonymous Monero contributors, but sometimes you got to speak up. Switching gears a little bit, I noticed a question that I don't think we addressed. Is about mining centralization, actually pool centralization, from user Monero UK, and they wanted to draw attention to the fact that some of the big pools have, you know, a lot of hash rate. Could you mention to audience to consider moving mining off xmrrig to a smaller pool where possible? So xmrrig is the software you use, and the mining pools he's referring to, I think, are support XMR and mine XMR, and these two pools currently have over 50% of the hash rate. So definitely anyone who's mining, that are using a smaller pool or, you know, or solo mine, ideally, which is what I would recommend anyone to do.
Has anybody seen this really fascinating community request out of the Monero community and trying to reduce blocks pool centralization?
Sorry, can you? What's the Monero proposal?
Sorry, yeah. I mean, it's of course Monero is like just crazy like normal, which I love, but they're essentially trying to I think it was originally Gingeropolis' idea, but it's trying to make each individual miner in the pool be able to submit I'm not going to get this correctly, something like the header of every block is created by the individual miner, and so it reduces centralization that way, if I'm getting this correctly.
So that's called self-select. That's actually available in Monero and has been for a while. You can use that on most Monero pools, and it's natively supported in Xmrnews. Basically what that does is it means that the pool themselves can't decide what transactions to include. So it just basically strips the power away from the pool to actually do any kind of censorship, which in Monero there's not really any besides just not including transactions, or just prevents funny business like with 51% attacks. It removes their ability to actually change the block template away from what your node says it should be. So it's definitely something I would recommend people use. If you're mining and you have your own node, you can just point it at that node with the self-select option in xmrnews. And I have a mining guide on my blog, SethSimmons.me, and at the end of that, I think I have a short section on self-select. Would highly recommend people go ahead and enable that if they're mining. It has caveats in that the pool could just stop allowing people to mine. Like if the pool actively wanted to attack the network, they could just stop allowing miners to select their own block template and just block miners that are trying to use self-select. So it doesn't prevent the pool from being able to do things. It just at least makes their lives a little bit more difficult if they want to be malicious on the network. But the best solution is that people just mine at smaller pools. I think a lot of people misunderstand how payouts work, and they think that at a bigger pool they get paid more Monero. But all that changes when you're mining at a bigger pool is that the payouts are more consistent in timing, because that pool's getting more blocks, but over the long run you make the same amount of Monero. And so moving to a smaller pool, you're not going to make less Monero over the long run. You're going to help support decentralization and make the network more secure, and you can meet the local community.
Yeah, maybe it's Monero's changing their consensus rules that this is mandated at protocol level. Maybe that's what they're doing. Or exploring, obviously. They're not doing it yet.
I don't really know, but I want to say, Seth, thanks so much for being here and answering that, because I wouldn't, I don't think I knew that. So, wow, great stuff. Good question, Seth. I don't know what Monero is doing though. Giannic, not Giannic. Giannic, you're sometimes crazy too, but I was about to say Gingeropolis is a bit of a crazy dude sometimes. He has these wacko ideas out there, and a lot of them are really good just because he's been around for a while. He has a good idea of how Monero works, right? He's been far longer than I have, but he's fantastic for doing the whole, like, what if we just mine Monero on Mars type thought.
Ring size 10,000.
Exactly. He's the type of person that is constantly pushing the Monero community with like totally wacko ideas. But a lot of them are well, they're all well-intentioned, but a lot of them are like actually on point because he just has a good knack for Monero because he's been around forever, right? So
oh yeah,
great.
dude. Like he's come with things that have changed for everybody. He was the one that came up with the term ring size. Like for an example, now everyone just uses that. You know?
I forgot. Yeah, that was definitely him. Yeah, it definitely. Yeah, he came up with ring size. Yeah, because we used to call it this stupid mixin name that was horrible and it confused everybody with mixing. But now, thanks Gingeropolis for ring size.
I just learned something about Monero. I thought it was just like a meme coin, like the Dogecoin of Monero, pretty much. But to me, it sounds like, as you were explaining, just pushing the Monero to its, like the network to its limits. What if we did this or that? Like a test net kind of thing. It's pretty cool. Has it ever like benefited Monero? Like,
oh yeah, like they were the first people to put RandomX on main chain. I'm pretty sure they were the first people to. They've already had a test net that runs Triptych, obviously with an unofficial form of the code. But they're the first people that showed like Gingeropolis's block explorer with a Triptych transaction. Like a ring size of 1,024. I mean, it's fun stuff.
So they're basically like a guinea pig kind of thing.
Yeah, to some extent. I mean, a joke is maybe not something you want to put all your money in, but it's certainly an interesting project from the sake of they just run with wild stuff that obviously we don't want to yet put in Monero, but it's fun to watch. I would say. I mean, this is obviously the Monero space, so we're gonna talk about Monero mostly, but to some extent, give Monero credit to take RandomX, take Triptych, and just run with it, and this in a way where no one's really taking it that seriously. So I don't know, has value, I suppose, for that reason. It's not like Dogecoin where it's a meme and it has no development at all. Like
yes. So that's what I particularly thought was like for a while. That's honestly what I thought. I thought it was the Dogecoin. It was just like a funny thing because of the name. I never really looked into it, but yeah, they got my respect if they're like implementing stuff before it's implemented to Monero, because basically it's actually it kind of makes Monero a bit simpler, right? Because they're doing a lot the testing for it, and just to see it working in action beforehand, it's cool. That's all right.
Hey, if I could, Justin, go back on that the mining pool thing. If you guys are mining, I highly suggest switching. I've been switching all my miners to smaller pools like cryptonote.social. They're a smaller one that does Monero and Monero. And there's another one called Monero Ocean, I believe, and they will actually take like nice hash. They'll take your best performing components and pay you out in Monero. It's pretty cool. Those two are smaller, and I highly suggest checking those out.
Nice, man. I can see John Foss. He just popped up. Would you like to come up, man? He's an active Monero contributor.
Let me invite him, and if he wants to, I can find him. He's in two different. The phone.
He does interesting media articles. Okay.
John, if you request it, then Justin will be able to see you faster.
I just sent a DM. Maybe that'll be the way to join. I don't see him in the list, but I see him on one of my phones, but that's not the phone that I use to invite people, sadly. So this is a whole convoluted thing. But John, I sent you a DM. So if you go through that and try to join that way, hopefully you can join as a speaker. You're obviously invited. But yeah, good advice there with regard to using small mining pools. Obviously, use ones that are reliable, but there are a lot of small ones that are quite reliable too. And so that definitely helps with network decentralization. So strongly encourage people to do that. Absolutely. We had Hector Cardenas ask another question. What future do you imagine with atomic swaps? Will people be able to mostly exchange without third parties? The answer is yes, and the reason I say yes is because it went live today. So yes, you can check out atomic swaps today. Comet Network released them on mainnet. And of course, since it's a Monero-focused project, Tor is supported day one. Woohoo! Have nothing else, right? Of course, Tor is going to be supported day one. So that's fantastic, right? Let's see, some other questions coming in. Some people asking about IRS bounties on Trace Monero. Is that actually possible? Or are they just trying the impossible? Who wants to answer that one? This is from the Meatman 1312. With the IRS put bounties cracking Monero, is that actually possible, or are they just trying the impossible? Who wants to answer that one? Nobody? Come on. You can,
I can take a shot at it, but
go ahead, Simon. Go ahead, Simon.
Okay. So like, the fact that they're putting out a bounty means that they can do it, right? And they have some of the best cryptographers in the world go to work for the government, I think. And so like it's a hard thing to do. Yeah, of course they can break it. Anything's doable if they want to throw a bunch of money at it. There's a chance that they could find some vulnerability. Chances are it's going to be an implementation bug from old CryptoNote reference code, like the last inflation bug. But I don't know. Like my guess is the bounty itself is proof that the system's working. That's what I would say.
So I mean, what they're building, at least. So Sarang and I interviewed Dave Jevons from CipherTrace about what they're doing, and they didn't go in like a ton of details, but basically, to the best of our knowledge, they've really just built like a statistical analysis tracing tool, and we don't really know how effective it is or what purposes it's really used for. So, everyone's really speculating, but it's very, very unlikely that they're sort of like this whole breakthrough in how they do something. All the cryptographers are pretty much working on releasing public research papers and the speed at which these traceability papers and the speed at which new cryptographic improvements is coming out is extraordinary. And luckily we've, for the past few years, we've had wonderful researchers looking at this stuff because Monero puts implementation of privacy first, I mean, it really attracts researcher talent. I mean, do you want to be a researcher who researches something, puts out this lovely paper, and then it's never used? Or do you want to design something for Monero where, if good, we're going to implement it in a huge project, you know, millions of people are going to be using it, right? It really is a better incentive to contribute. So, I mean, yeah, there's money being found to look at tracing Monero, but I don't think that's surprising at all. You have billions of dollars of ransomware payments that are paid in Monero. So obviously, people are going to want to try and look into that. I think that the amounts are going to increase if we're going to try to build for it. That's why the Monero community is so interested in making sure the privacy protections are built out for everybody in strong. So it's a cat and mouse battle, but I don't expect that just because someone throws money at a problem that it's a major, you know, system breakdown. I really think it's unlikely that Monero will have a systemic issue with its privacy. You're just going to see more focused, more built out methods for targeted attacks, I think. And that's what Breaking Monero series is for example, is to teach you on those basics. I think if you've watched Breaking Monero and understand it, I think you are already like ahead of what the tools will do. I really think you are. So just keep that in mind.
I reckon the IRS having a bounty on to crack Monero, that's bullish. That's as bullish as it gets. You know, there's no need to like freak out or anything. It's bullish. Yeah.
And I guess just to remind everybody, like, if you are worried about transaction surveillance, what's the best thing you could do about it? It's to use Monero, right? Like, come on, right? So that's what you can do to best protect yourself. So
I think Seth has made a list of use cases, right? Of like for Monero. Privacy wise.
Sorry, I was having some issues. I'm back now. What was I just heard the tail end of my name.
I think you've made like a detailed list of like use cases of why is needed.
I have a list of places that accept Monero, free open source software projects, privacy preserving organizations, that kind of thing.
Right.
Not of just like general use cases. I mean, essentially, Monero is useful whenever you need to transact, and that's a pretty broad use case. But yeah, I do have a list of some examples of places and people that accept Monero for donations or for payments, and then obviously there's a long merchant list on getmonero.org as well of people that accept Monero for payments. There's definitely lots of places. A quick comment on the IRS thing too. I definitely agree with Dylan. I think it's a very, very, very good sign that they're putting out money to try to crack Monero, because it means what we're doing works, and it means that what we're doing is gaining enough acceptance that they are worried that they won't have visibility in the future as acceptance grows. While there are definitely some things that happen with Monero that are illegal or people frown upon, I think it's important to remember that some things that are legal today won't be legal in the future, and some things that are legal or that are illegal in jurisdiction are considered rights than others. So I think it's important to stay open to figuring out why it's important that we have private money. But I think it's a good sign they're trying to Monero, and it should be a good driver for us to keep the pedal on, trying to stay ahead of that arms race, keep implementing privacy improvements, keep doing the hard work, keep doing outreach and education, and keep trying to pull in people who can help with the technical aspects of Monero as well.
It was the best advertisement campaign. I framed it for myself.
Yeah, let's remember how a little bit how cryptography is built and then broken is. Hold on. Is like, let's take RSA 2048 bit, which is kind of the. Sorry, my kid is crying here, so I'm bobbling as I'm talking. Like RSA 2048 bit, our security, public key, private key cryptography is what pretty much is the backbone of the modern internet. And once that cryptography is sort of officialized and it has gone through its paces, in general, it's really, really tough to break.
Well, I mean, we talk about things like cryptography, but I really don't think that's what they're doing. I mean, maybe they have a team reviewing all the cryptography and stuff, but I think they're just trying to trace or create tracing models, which doesn't really have anything to do with the cryptography itself, but actually simply related to how well do ring sigs work, right? And that's the main area of Monero's focus, in the research side since literally Monero research papers 1, like that came out in what, 2014 or 2015. So it's something that's been top of mind for Monero's entire existence. So it would go to stand that it's on top of their mind too. So we gotta beat attackers at that sort of game. And I think at the moment winning and need to keep it up. By the way, I invited Howard on, HYC. I sent him the invites, and he's like, what is this? So I'm going to keep working on trying to get it on. And hopefully talk about RandomX, because he's not only just a Monero OG, but, well, actually, there's an interesting background, so I can give him intro. Get him on. But we should, Casey, do you want to try and come up with another, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Can you distract the rest of the room with another set of conversations while I try to get Howard on?
Yeah, sure. I actually, another question that I kind of want to throw out, especially for the newcomers in the room, and obviously we have a lot of subject matter experts here, but something that a question that I've been getting a whole lot recently from just talking to people who are not familiar with Monero is, how does Monero keep transaction fees so low? How does dynamic block size work? And is it true that the more people using Monero, the lower the fees? So if anybody wanna take a stab at that, it's a question that I've been increasingly getting, which is also good, because obviously when people compare transaction fees, a lot of the times they're thinking about Bitcoin in comparison. So who wants to take this?
Chill, do you want to try to take that one?
Sure. What the question? Sorry.
The question was, how does Monero keep its transaction fee so low? How does dynamic block size work in theory? And is it true that transaction fees will continue to decrease the more people using Monero?
I would answer that at the technical level.
So Howard says he's trying to join, but get any audio. We'll get him on. Mike, what about you? Want to try that one?
Hey, I'm actually on the right now. Or sorry.
Looks like everyone's in a busy time here. I guess just to answer, for the sake of answering that question. So yes, Monero does still ultimately have similar challenges as Bitcoin when it comes to keeping fees down, because ultimately you have infinite space to store information on nodes, right? So the way Monero addresses this is saying, you know what, it does not make sense for us to choose a set block size to keep forever, right? We're not going to say, well, it's be 1 megabyte, because 1 megabyte today is obviously going to be a lot smaller comparatively 20 years down the line and 50 years down the line. So instead of cap a very specific amount, Monero block size is effectively capped at a specific long-term growth rate. So it can only increase by a certain amount over a long period of time. And there actually is some flexibility over short periods of time. So if there's like one really busy day, for example, you could have very large blocks, and by large I don't mean like terabyte or anything, nothing like that, but you could have, compared to the day before, larger blocks for like a very short period, which then would have to decrease over time to fit the long term. So long story short is, yes, Monero still does the idea of storing transactions in blocks, and you need to pay to compete for this space. But instead of being capped at a very specific amount, it's capped at a growth rate that is more in line with technological innovation. So that's helps allow Monero to potentially grow more. Is that we don't say, well, 1 megabyte now is going to be a huge challenge years from now. Even though the blockchain will continue to grow, we're pretty optimistic that technology will continue to innovate, and so it's capped at a somewhat real growth rate while not being capped at a very arbitrary amount. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, and just to point out what it means in the real world is, you can look at the transaction graph for Monero starting, let's say, January 2019. We had about somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 transactions per day, and the transaction fees were half a cent. Now we are between 20 and 30,000 transactions per day. We hit 35,000 not too long ago, I think last week. So 10x that transaction amount, and the transaction fees are half cent. So that's what it means in the real world. Is that going to continue to be the case? Most likely, it's going to stay in that range. Fees do go down, but the price of cryptocurrencies tends to increase with increased usage. So when Monero is doing 100,000 transactions per day, is that going to equate to the same, US dollar value? We don't know. So because that depends on the price of Monero at the time. But looking at this historical example, over the last 2 years, 2.5 years, we've had a 10x in the number of transactions, and transaction fees have remained the same. So Monero is doing something right compared to Bitcoin and Ethereum.
I always mention the can of Coke example, because right now, if you purchase a can of Coke, the exact fee on Bitcoin costs you approximately $8.60, whereas Monero is less than 1 cent. And I just think that just makes sense to everyone. Why would you pay?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, Monero isn't above scalability issues. Like it has these as potential problems. It's just that it doesn't have a hard cap in the same way. So adoption will have to increase significantly for it to become a challenge, and then it will hopefully still be better positioned to address these challenges. But obviously, we kind of see, right? It's easy to armchair say you're better. So I know some Bitcoiners are like, "What are you doing? You still have the same problems." I mean, sure, we don't avoid the problem; we just address it in how most people in the Monero ecosystem would say it in a more sensible way. Hopefully, Nat, it's like you're on for a second as a speaker, so hopefully you're able to jump. Are you? And my this is your listener. You're connecting, so hopefully you'll be able to connect and say hi again. But just to quickly cover the room again, if you have comments, any questions you'd like us to address, you can definitely let us know with sending a tweet with the hashtag Monero Space. Howard says he probably can't join because he only has browser, not the Twitter app, which isn't super surprising to me, if I'm honest. So hopefully convince him eventually. But yeah, if you have any questions that you'd like us to address, you can write to us, comment, whatever, with the hashtag Monero Space. I'll be watching them as they come in. But yeah, we're celebrating Monero's atomic swap on mainnet today with Comet Network. So we're really, really pleased about that. We think that it's a very, very useful tool that will allow people to transact without even having to use intermediaries. It is an important step, of course, from a functional perspective, but also from a symbolic perspective in terms of making Monero more resilient against certain, external forces, shall I say.
I see that I don't think we covered from Van J AVK, Van Jav K. If there's a chain reorg, merchant would only lose the money if customer was malicious, right? Customer would need to send another transaction to invalidate the other one. Otherwise, last transaction would get included late anyways. Does anyone have any input there?
I mean, it's not necessarily just that the customer was malicious. Like, let's say their block was included on a block, in a block that an attacker was trying to remove. So, I mean, in theory, who knows? So I would say that's a simplified way to look at the problem, but but maybe it's sufficient for what they're, the way they're framing it. I don't know if people have others, but in theory, people could try to invalidate blocks for really any reason or arbitrarily prevent transactions from being included. But obviously with Monero, there's less information to go off of as to why you would arbitrarily block something. So it makes it less likely.
Yeah, I think that's my take as well. I see the question that we were speaking about when we got cut off from the space from user Winner. I'm listening live and I've heard Bitcoin inflation bug mentioned a few times. Has Monero ever had an inflation bug? And how do you monitor this when transactions are private? That's an important question.
I would encourage them to first read the about supply auditability blog post on the Monero website. I authored that with Dr. Schnorr, and it seems to be really well received, not just in the Monero community, but among other communities, including like Zcash, Bitcoin, Ethereum. There don't seem to be any significant complaints with the blog post. The thing says that there's several different types of inflation. So I encourage you to start there. The other thing I want to add is that Flony took that and did a horizon and talk. I'm not going to go heavy into the game theory because I think it's, who knows what someone's going to do. But just the idea that if there was potentially an inflation bug on Bitcoin, like what's the likelihood that the Bitcoin network would get its act together so quickly to hard fork that out and potentially remove legitimate business or trade activity in the process? I just think it's likely, and I think that it would cause, like, even though it would be visible, it would still be catastrophically horrible. And I think it's important to keep that in perspective. Really, in any case, if you have illegitimate supply generated, that it is a catastrophic problem to any cryptocurrency, not just oh, it's scary because it's hidden. I mean, at the end of the day, you need to balance trade-offs. In the Monero community, we say, well, you need to not have any sense of good privacy, so we go that route. And I guess I'm less convinced than some Bitcoiners in saying that just because you have transparent amounts means that you have a defense mechanism. I think that you're still, should there ever be an issue, you're still heavily vulnerable, and the network will have severe consequences no matter what, really. But Jill, do you have anything?
Yeah, Gionic had a really good example a couple weeks ago. I hope it was you on Clubhouse about how people used to steal, families, poor families, steal from the tombs. I don't know if you want to go over that again, Gionic, because he explained the theory behind. If you were to compromise Bitcoin with an inflation bug, your best interest is to do it fast because the network is public. So you want to take down steal as much as you can. Whereas Monero, since it's private, your best interest is to just kind of milk it as long as you can. I think that's the theory, but you can explain that better.
Yeah, thanks. I think the example I gave was with tomb raiders and the people who built the tombs of the Egyptian pharaohs, and in most cases the thieves would be one of the builders of that tomb, would pass on the secret to his family, and so on and so on. And it would be a closely guarded family secret that would allow them a certain, income to live off of for generations. And these tombs would be discovered 1,000 years later, and they would still be full of treasures, because obviously, these thieves can't steal everything, because it would be immediately evident, like, where are you getting all this gold? They would just take a little bit at a time. But more philosophically, I guess, looking at it is, what's the incentive of an attacker? Just like Jill said, so you have a way to break Monero, or so to break Bitcoin. You found an inflation bug, and from that point, you're thinking, how are you going to extract the maximum value out of this? Everyone's going to know immediately that Bitcoin has been exploited, and the value is going to plummet regardless of whether the exploit is big or small, because it's going to be on every news station immediately. It's going to be on CNBC. It's probably going to be on CNN. People are going to be talking about it, and they're going to say Bitcoin's been hacked, and it would be true. So if you're a Bitcoin holder, what's more comforting to you, knowing that the minute Bitcoin gets exploited, it'll be immediately blasted over the news, and the value is probably going to take 90% dive that day? Or Monero, where someone might discover a way to inflate the supply. They'll probably do it little by little to make the price as little as possible. So actually, in that second case, the interests of the attacker are aligned with yours. They actually won't see the value of their they want to see the network continue to thrive, and eventually someone else will discover this bug, probably a good actor, maybe someone from the research lab or someone else, and the bug will be fixed. So and that'll be done. So personally, what I feel more comfortable with is the Monero scenario, but that's just me. Maybe you like this, living on the edge with Bitcoin, because any moment that bug gets exploited, and the likelihood of a bug existing in Monero and in Bitcoin is just the same. I think Bitcoin has more bugs than Monero. Bitcoin actually had one exploited back in 2010, or hasn't. So the likelihood is just the same. Risk profile is different, so that's my take on it. I guess another look at it is certain motorcycles don't have a light to indicate that you're running low on fuel. So just run out of fuel in the middle of the highway, and let's imagine that another motorcycle has a light telling you that, hey, you've just run out of fuel. In both cases, you're going to be stuck in the middle of the highway, and you're going to need to figure out a way to get out of that jam. Supply auditability is just, it's not really a virtue. You're just sitting at home crunching numbers saying, oh, it hasn't been hacked yet, it hasn't hacked yet, and 5 minutes later, oh, it hasn't been hacked yet. Not really any it doesn't give me any comfort first, knowing that I can crunch numbers by myself. And there's all kinds of other cryptography that you're trusting, and Bitcoin and any other cryptocurrency. So relying on transparent amounts is not really it's not a virtue to me. And Bitcoiners have turned it into a virtue, but
I like your example of like a gas light. It's not a gas light that comes on when you're about to come out of gas. It's a gas light that comes out that's like, oh, congrats, you just ran out of gas, right? I think that's a good comparison. Also, I want to say welcome back, Debrick, of course, but Howard, it looks like you popped in as a speaker. Do you want to try your audio?
Hey.
Welcome, Howard. Thanks for downloading the Twitter app for us.
Yeah, you guys have pushed me to the edge here.
Social engineering at its finest. You got a back door installed on your phone. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's going to be uninstalled as soon as we're done here.
That's a good point. My access to the Monero Twitter is going to be revoked the second this thing is over too, so it's probably for the best. But to those who don't know who you are, because this is a broad community of people that are on the Monero Twitter space. Maybe they aren't heavily involved in Reddit. Maybe we've got, of course, quite a few names here you've probably seen in very nuanced details discussions. However, too, would you like to introduce yourself, Howard? Who are you? Who is this person?
Well, gee, where do I start? I'm an open source developer. Been working on various code for the past 30 some years. I wrote the database engine that Monero uses to store its blockchain, and I worked on the design of the RandomX proof of work algorithm, various other stuff.
Do you mind if I give the quick background history of how you found Monero, or do you want to just run with that specifically?
Okay, I can run with that, sure. I was not looking for that, certainly. Fluffy Pony actually recruited me when he was looking for a database. I have to say that my primary work before this and actually ongoing is in OpenLDAP. I've been doing distributed computing systems since the 1980s. And when I first heard about Bitcoin and blockchains, I dismissed them as total garbage because anybody knows a linear data structure like a blockchain will never scale. Or anybody who knows anything about distributed computing would know that. So in 2008, 2009, I completely ignored it. When Fluffy Pony popped up on IRC and said, "Hey, I'm interested in using your LMDB for a cryptocurrency project," I said, have fun, knock yourself out. I had zero interest in that whatsoever. But let's see, so this is late 2015, say December. But one of the interesting things came up. He said, we need this to support 32-bit OSs. I'm like, well, LMDB is really mainly intended for 64-bit. There is some experimental 32-bit code in there, but it hasn't been heavily tested. And over the course of months, that's kind of what drew me to the project. They need help with the integration or testing on 2-bit Windows, actually. And so I started to, I had to download all of the code and start building it and running it so that I could debug it and see what's going on. And from there, I just started to look at the rest of the technology and get more and more involved.
So just to be clear, it turns out that 32-bit Windows is the reason that we have RandomX. Is that a fair assessment?
Dude, that's a harsh thing to say, but it could be true.
Someone has to say the truth here, Howard. Sometimes,
Oh my God.
No, that's hilarious. Obviously, we're glad that you're able to join us. We were just talking about really all Monero topics. We're taking in questions. If people have the Monero space, we're going through those. Giannik's been really good at pulling them also. But we're also celebrating, of course, the Comet Network Atomic Swaps going live on mainnet. Do you have any comments, anything you want to say for the record on Monero Atomic Swaps?
That's another thing that I've been pretty skeptical of for the longest time. Once again, this has probably been said before. If you own Monero, why would you ever want possibly tainted Bitcoin? But the other thing that makes this interesting now is the fact that lets you do trustless, centralized exchanges. And so, from that perspective, I think this is huge. It's a huge step forward, and I'm looking forward to seeing more use made out of that.
I think the main use for why you'd want the tainted Bitcoin is because you want to make money off of it. That's about it.
Yeah. Okay.
You're better at making it not tainted than someone else. Who knows, though? Yeah, well, I think we'll have to see what actual market thinks out of this. I think if exchanges, like centralized exchanges, remain super, super easy to use, most people use those. But it'll be interesting to see, and I'm glad that the tool is available. If you have So if you're someone who wants to really use the swap for any particular reason, you can let us know, and we can discuss it. But yeah, someone asked earlier, had anyone actually used the Comet swaps? And there was no one here that actually said yes. So that might be an indicator. I personally do not want to sell my Monero for the swapped Bitcoin I would inevitably receive and have an officer show up at my house the next hour, honestly.
Yeah, that's kind of my feeling too.
Or like what happened to Debrick, where his bank account was shut down because of a Bitcoin transaction. So I guess that's a risk. But
Exactly.
But Seth Simmons mentioned that there's going to be liquidity providers. So like you said, people are going to want to make money on this, and I don't personally see individual Monero users wanting to use it, because why would you go to Bitcoin once you found Monero? But for Bitcoiners, I certainly see the use case, and there are many holders of tainted Bitcoin who would like to make it clean. So I see that part of the transaction. I see the use case there for sure. And maybe there's people on the other side who are willing to take the risk and take that tainted Bitcoin. Maybe they're Russian, maybe they're Iranian, maybe they don't care about Bitcoin taint. So yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure.
We have quite a few questions piling up here. So Anonymous Cypherpunk is asking how Monero's community assets are held, who controls the domain, social handles, funds, how is our community organized, as a nonprofit or fully decentralized?
That's a good question. Yeah, Monero has this DAO to vote with. No, I'm just kidding. I know we have some people on the call that might think, well, why don't you have a sort of DAO? Isn't that what you do to decentralize things? Is you get this governance token, you use it to vote on who controls the Twitter or whatever. And I think those are just, I mean, in some magical world that would work well, but I just don't think it actually does. And so the Monero community is decentralized not because it has DAO, it makes decisions like that, but because you have a wide variety of stakeholders that each have their own projects that they're working on with their own work groups and are working on different things. So you have people that are interested in a wide variety of things in the Monero ecosystem. You have different people have the Twitter account, then run the website, then run the Reddit, all these sorts of things contribute to decentralization. So the idea is to Monero is decentralized not because it has a good governance token or whatever, because you have a wide variety of different groups, each working on their different projects and doing their own things, right? Like Monero Talk obviously puts out some wonderful content on Monero interviews, but we still do interviews from Space YouTube, for example. And Jill has her own show that she does with the Open Academy Initiative. So everyone does their own sorts of things that, they contribute different ways they want to give back. And the way I see it, at least, Monero is not decentralized because we all came together and agreed in how it would be decentralized. It's decentralized because you have everyone who does their own thing. And it's sort of in this cast thing to work out. I would love to hear people's opinions on that, though.
Diego is not here, but I really loved what he told us in the last Clubhouse call, that we are moving from a centralized world to a decentralized one. So obviously, if you register a website, someone's going to have to give a credit card, someone's going to have to do that, but the idea is just people that do their own thing and contribute, and anyone can basically start mining or start supporting the development team. They
I think you broke up there, Jill. I think the short answer to this is Monero is decentralized, like other open source projects are decentralized. It operates much closely to how classic open source projects work. So if you read any books on open source software, you'll see how Monero functions. But yeah, like Justin said, we're not selling you a governance token, and there's no DAO. So you need to really consider how open source development works and whether you're comfortable with those risks, because they exist. But they're arguably, there's a better set of trade-offs than with a centralized development process where the risk is, within one corporation. So I would just say familiarize yourself with open source software. That's I guess one answer to it. And Howard, while we have you here, there was a question earlier that I think you can address better than any of us, which was, why is Monero not moving to proof of stake? Can you tackle that one for us?
Well, there's the first obvious one is, proof of stake requires you to stake visible amounts of coins, and that kind of defeats the purpose of the privacy that Monero offers if you're exposing the amounts of coins that you own. So I think just philosophically that's a non-starter. There's all these variations on proof of stake, and some may be better than others, but they all boil down to that core concept of staking requires public amounts, which I think is just foolish for a coin that is billed as private.
I know there are some projects that try to hide the amounts for the sake of staking through a variety of methods. Maybe they'll do like reveal information to a node who then collects all this, aggregates it, and then submits. I know someone proposed that for Nano, for example, or you would do it with I don't know. I'm not an expert on all the specific means, but I know people are trying to tackle that problem. So I guess besides just the fact, like, suppose you could hand wave and say, well, what if we didn't have to reveal the amounts of stake? What were the big reasons why we still wouldn't want to do it, do you think?
Well, the other reason, assuming that problem's out of the way, is that proof of stake doesn't give you, ongoing protection, ongoing security for the network, right? As soon as somebody decides they want to attack the network and they've accumulated enough, percentage of the coins to mount an attack, once they've started that attack, they can keep it going forever, basically for free, because their percentage of the network doesn't really change. Whereas proof of work, if you want to attack a proof of work network, you have to invest money and energy into it continuously for the duration of your attack. So just from a security and robustness standpoint, proof of stake just doesn't end up. Did that make sense?
Yeah, and just to add to that, proof of stake existed long before proof of work. So proof of work is actually the solution to proof of stake. And it's interesting how, now it's being billed as the reverse, but actually the invention of Bitcoin is the Nakamoto consensus with proof of work.
Okay, I don't want to bring this too much into price, but just realizing that Bitcoin's down 10% today and Nero's up like 0.25% or 0.5%. Wow, I didn't know that happened. I clearly out of the loop. Do we think it was the atomic swap news, or what do we think it was?
Twitter Spaces.
Twitter Space, yeah, this is Twitter Spaces. So it's our good luck charm. Don, are you still here? What do you think?
Yeah, man, I'm still here. Yeah, Yeah, I was looking at the chart earlier on the Bitcoin pair. It's done like a 20% rise since the afternoon. So yeah, bro. This is just a start. Everyone in here is early. You know, fucking this is gonna go to $1,000 easily, short term, then $5,000, then $7,000, then $10,000, and it's just gonna keep going up. You know, everyone in here is still early.
I'm pleased to
And
announce that Monero now has a higher market cap than Shiba Inu coin. Okay, just we finally do. We did it. We did it. I know when Monero first launched, our main goal was just to be better than Shiba Inu coin. That was like the whole purpose for Monero's existence. I know Howard's fine. He wasn't here because of 32-bit Windows. He's here because he just doesn't like dogs.
Well, that's all true.
I knew it. Knew it. We got you on the record.
You're letting out all my secrets, man.
Just imagine it. Could you imagine just the conversation at like the first DEF CON meetings where we're just like, like, oh, we're at this hacker conference talking about how we'll just overcome Shiba Inu coin. That's just hilarious. That I did not expect that. Whatever. Crypto market doesn't make any sense. But if it's any I don't know whatever this word is. Dogecoin and Monero had a similar number of subreddit subscribers going into like January or December or something. And they separated a bit, let's say, where Monero's grown a little bit, but Dogecoin has grown a lot. So I think it just points out that you kind of need just like inflection points where everything kind of blows up in your face. But Monero has kind of been trucking along at a steady increase. That's boring, but it's still here. But I guess today is a good day from that perspective too. So, I'll take it. One of those, I'll take it if it's offered.
I'd like to add, if Ethereum, if Monero had Ethereum's current market cap right now, that would put one XMR at $15,000 per XMR, right?
Well, if Elon Musk had tweeted about Monero instead of Dogecoin, we would be there by now, right?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, but more money is going to inject it into the market. Bitcoin will, the market cap will increase crazy amounts. So would Ethereum. Like, I definitely see Monero being in top 3, top 5 coins, and yeah, it's very doable,
Yeah, well,
very doable.
in 2016, that was already true.
Oh, the market cap, yeah, but it would have been much smaller, right?
Yes, certainly.
Yeah.
All right, this is our last chance to market talk out of the way before we move to something else. I'm going to start going through the Monero subreddit and see what news I missed over the last week or so.
Yeah, I think Elon really made a huge mistake because, obviously in Monero Recent, we've actually talked about how to get the Monero network to scale between Mars and Earth, and none of these other parts have actually put a plan together. So when we talk about the currency of the future and humans living in colonies on Moon and Mars, we'll have the answers for that when the time comes.
Well, learning last week that Change Now had Monero as the third bought and sold cryptocurrency was a big news to me.
Yeah, a ton of people use change now, actually, like whether it's through Cake or directly, it really is a lot of use. As far as I could tell, the way they describe going through 10,000 Monero. At first they said an hour. I think they later said to like 2 or 3. That's still pretty considerable volume, though, as far as Monero is concerned.
Yeah, again, it's just too bullish. Everything is just too bullish on Monero. All the signs there, guys.
I want to quickly. I mean, we haven't talked about this because other news is kind of our point today, but Monero previously used Freenode as the main IRC provider. I don't know if that's the way to describe it, but the IRC main channel resided on Freenode, and it's like they're moving to Libera just because Freenode was the holding company for it, bought out by someone else, and they are instituting different policies and the like on Freenode. So Fluffy Pony put up a GitHub issue, and it had literally unanimous. We go back to governance. Literally unanimous, not even one random person for the sake of wanting to be different even disputed this. Everybody wanted to move to Libera, so that is happening, and I know on the Matrix side, people were preparing for that today. Did anyone have comments on this whole Freenode deal? I'm not really an expert in like Freenode's, but I guess from my perspective, I don't see why you'd even want to use an IRC server, just because I grew up. Okay, this is maybe showing my young age, but I didn't use IRC until 2017 when Monero basically was like, you have to use it to talk to people. So that's when I started using IRC. But can someone explain to me why people still use IRC over Matrix? Is it just a habit thing, or is it like genuine letter and slice for people?
I guess you could turn the question around. Why is Matrix better than IRC, particularly if you're an open source developer? I mean, pretty much. Well, when Freenode was the main game in town, every open source project was there, and everyone was getting productive use out of it. So, what's Matrix doing any better than that?
I mean, with Matrix, I can host my own server and still talk to everyone else on their own servers. I don't have to like worry about them logging weird stuff, and the DMs are default encrypted. I can just click a button and make a room, and I don't need to make a channel name or whatever. I could just like make a group chat that's encrypted with across several servers. I don't know. I think it's kind of cool.
I mean, that sounds like, it has the same features as Jabber and a bunch of other protocols that have come along the way. And it's great, I mean, feature-wise, that's cool, but I also think we got protocol fatigue. There was AIM chat and Yahoo chat and Microsoft MSN. Actually, there were at least 3 different Microsoft chats. And they all cycled through in the early 2000s. I think people just got sick of migrating.
Yeah, that's a good point. Does anyone else have like 30 different chat apps on their phone between Signal and Threema and Matrix and IRC, Cloud, and everything else? I'm pretty sure I have like 20 different ways of contacting people and having people contact me on my phone alone. It's pretty nuts. I definitely with you on the whole needed billion different ways to do stuff.
Yeah, I think I only have a half dozen, and I delete them every time I get a chance.
Nice. I envy you. I envy you.
There was a question about quantum computers being a threat to Monero. Did we cover that?
No, we not. Not at all. That comes brand new. By that I mean for today, in this chat.
I think I can answer that question. So the algo can be changed to be quantum resistant, right? There was a threat.
Sure, just like any other hard fork, if we see a threat, certainly we can adapt.
There you go, guys. If you guys have any technical questions, I have all the answers.
But realistically, quantum computing is, first of all, it's not going to be a threat within the next 5 or 10 years. Second of all, the mitigations for it are, technologically, the resource constraints are several orders of magnitude greater than what we're using today. So, like we could say tomorrow, we're going to make everything quantum resistant algorithms, and our resource usage would go up a factor of 1,000, and nobody's going to run that. So what we're doing here and now, we're using the best use of technology for here and now. We have our eyes set on what's coming down the road. We know what the post-quantum crypto algorithms are. We're watching them all getting developed and tested and stuff. It's like, it's great. Whenever they become practical, or whenever threats become practical, we'll be ready to switch. But we don't need to jump the gun on that. There is no pressing, there's no urgent need for that.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like the world will eventually be blown up or swallowed by the sun. What are we doing to prepare for that? It's like, well, honestly, not really much right now. Right? So there's some time. There's some other smart people looking at it. We're doing what we can to get ahead of it, right? We funded what is relevant to fund. But it's what else am I supposed to do, right? So would people agree with that analogy, or am I off by a bunch there? That's at least the way I like to not think about it, to be honest.
Yeah, well, it really, yeah. There's no immediate reason to worry about it. It's just not there.
I'm getting hungry here. I'm gonna power through it. I'm gonna have dinner in the background while we still have this, but it's pretty cool in Europe now at this point, I would say. Is it after midnight now?
Just about night here.
Okay, you're in. Yeah, people in Paris and over are gonna be in 12:44, I think. But yeah, glad to have everyone on Europe now. We're going to keep going. We're going to make this like work until Pacific Coast time wants to go to bed for Friday night. So it's going to be a lot, but Giannik's can carry us through.
Yeah, I'm your Pacific Coast time guy. So
yeah, we're going to make everybody happy, and then all of a sudden we're going to have everyone else come on. What was it? Wednesday. On Wednesday, I did a consensus panel. I was representing Monero, but I was their Monero person that they had as the total Monero person in the past. And they did it. They started like 10 p.m. Central. And I think it was 10:30. Yeah, 10:30 p.m. No, 3 p.m. Eastern. Sorry, so 9:30 Central. It was really late. So I was pretty tired, but at least it wasn't in the morning. I feel like I'm like more fired up and worked up later, so it's good. I was able to more assertively answer some of the questions, and where I was just unapologetically being like, so the question would be something like, why would you want to integrate with Monero? What's the perks of integrating Monero and DeFi for privacy? Like, well, it's your only asset that's private, so there you go. That's like the main reason why you'd want to integrate that one over ours. So it was a fun time, but hopefully that'll be available soon to people who didn't have the consensus stuff. I got an email saying some stuff was available, so I'll take a look. But yeah, I'm glad that we at least had someone there. I don't think in the past Monero's really been that well represented. I guess Fluffy Pony has been on a few panels, I think, right? But not recently. Am I remembering correctly?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think he was on anything this right. Probably too busy with the yaks or whatever. I don't really know what's going on there. I just open an alias set up and I'm good to go. We have a few questions coming in, and
I see Tyler joined us, the Why Monero host. Do you want to come up and join us, Tyler? as a speaker?
Let me work on getting him as a speaker. Found out a way around a bug. So if I click on some people's faces and it doesn't have the invite to speak button. But if I click on 2 other faces and then go back, the invite to speak button reappears. It's magic. So I invited him to speaker at this point. So hopefully he's able to hop on. I guess one thing I want to quickly say, which is very timely because I just got a message that came through. So thank you, Casey, for reminding about this. But yeah, if you like these sort of conversations, we do them every Sunday on Clubhouse. So if you have a Clubhouse account or, you know, want an invite, we have plenty of people with invites now. We do this every single Sunday, and we go through all things Monero, and they do a really, really good job at bringing on guests. Jill, you organize that, correct? And she does a fantastic job at making sure that they're always exciting, they're always interesting. And so if you want to have a conversation every week, every Sunday, they have it was originally supposed to be like an hour, but now it's like 6 hours every Sunday. So, I mean, that's just the way it is based off people's enthusiasm. So you have plenty of time to speak with people, and they have more speaker slots. It's perhaps a little bit more personal of a conversation than you would have on this like super broad Monero Twitter space thing. So I would very solidly recommend hopping on there. Chill or Casey, is there anything else you wanted to add to that, since the two of you are so heavily involved? I know a lot of people here are participants in the Clubhouse, but I think the two of you, I feel like everyone is. Gianna, Deverick, I feel like you guys are also heavily involved in that too.
Yeah, thank you, Justin, for the shout out. So the Clubhouse is a really good forum for anybody who just wants to come in. It's a very chill setting. We just converse. The mods there all try to invite everybody down to come up on stage, and everybody just stays around on stage. We haven't run into an issue where we can't invite everybody on yet. So, you know, if you just want to come in and get to know some folks in the Monero community and just, you know, talk about mostly Monero, but, you know, we talk about other technologies sometimes too, if it is related to Monero, even if it's remotely. So it's a good time. And you can, you know, drop in and drop out whenever. Like Justin said, these meetings have been running longer than before. Lately, we've been having some 3-4 hour sessions. So if you can't come in at 1, don't think you're missing anything. Just pop in when you can, and message us if you need invites or something, and we'll get you all straightened out.
Yeah, the Monero community will hook you up with so many Clubhouse invites if you need them at this point. We got you covered.
Definitely.
Does anyone in the audience have any questions? Maybe if you raise your hand, we can get you up here, or, you know.
At the moment, or I think we're at our speaker max slot, but I want to quickly say hi to Tyler, and then we can revisit the idea. Thanks for joining us as a speaker, Tyler.
Absolutely. Appreciate the invite, and it's been nice listening in. I'm relatively new to Monero, but was in the Bitcoin space for a while, and so still relatively new, but was good to get started and to see some of the advancement we're seeing today.
Any who jumps into the Monero community and starts off running with a podcast is like, it's music to my ears every time. So thank you so much for doing that.
Absolutely. It's definitely a huge time commitment. So kudos to Douglas and to Seth. I'm looking forward to Seth's content. Kind of see him as the kind of the Matt Odell of Monero. So looking forward to seeing some of that.
Yeah, we'll go back around to praising you in a second, but like just the fact that Seth is running with his own podcast now, and is what next week he's going to premiere it with Techlore. Henry from Techlore, I think is fantastic. He's an example of someone who I didn't hear about until relatively recently. Henry, I'm referring to, and I went through some of his old videos and stuff where he's sitting through like some other so-called privacycoin stuff and kind of falling, like going to the marketing a little bit, but now he seems to be very, very on the Monero train in terms of, yeah, this is what I recommend for users for their privacy. And on the VPN side, it was actually cool because I recommended to him, like, hey, for a privacy section, like there's no requirement at the moment for your VPN review that you actually have an anonymous payment option. So I recommended that, hey, in order to get full points, it would be really nice if the VPN provider had to either accept Monero or they had to accept like a prepaid gift card or something, right? Because when I was very young in high school, may or may not had to go to the store and cash for a prepaid gift card to buy a VPN. So that's very close to home for me. So it'd be obviously far easier to use Monero now, but I didn't know about it at the time. So he seemed very open to the idea. He opened a GitHub issue like 2 seconds later. So it'd be nice to see him put some pressure on these VPN companies to actually add this option. And in terms of pressure, like he has viewership. He's a channel that reviews VPNs. So I hope that will encourage them to actually add Monero. I know, Howard, you've been pretty outspoken in the past about the idea of, like, if a VPN doesn't accept Monero, like, what are you doing, right? Is that fair?
I mean, it's common sense, right? What privacy are you getting if you bought VPN with something traceable? That's just stupid.
Yeah, I think everyone should. And there's this really interesting like XMR proxy or whatever that allows you to buy certain. So Molvat VPN doesn't let you buy with Monero directly, but like there's a separate site that lets you buy vouchers with Monero. Like the whole stupid convoluted process. They really should just accept Monero directly, but they don't. So it's a very clever like sidestep thing, I think. But it is what it is.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Just wanted to add. For the Clubhouse as well, you don't have to use your actual number. You could use a virtual number. So, just some
Google Voice.
Yeah, you just got to be creative.
Sorry, Tyler. I want to circle back on Tyler here real quick because I just moved on. But for the podcast, how many episodes have you put out now? And, what are some of the main highlights? What's the reason for people to check you out?
So far we put about 5 out. I do all my editing internally, so when I record a podcast, I have to go into post-production probably, and I'm not tech savvy, so it'll probably take me 6 to 8 hours per episode just because I go in and I make sure everyone's audio is relatively similar, so it's not blowing out anyone's speakers. But so far we've covered Random X with Howard, covered the Bitcoin fungibility graveyard with Seth, covered kind of what I want to do next really is compare the fundamentals of Bitcoin and Monero and kind of the trade-offs between the two. So looking forward to doing that one, and just lined up 2 more episodes over the next couple of weeks. I'll be in the Bitcoin Miami conference next week, but I've been kind of slacking as far as episodes go, but look forward to picking that back up June.
Oh, I'll be in Miami too. I hope we get to see each other.
Yeah, definitely. I'm come find you. If I see you, I might dox myself, which, we'll see.
Okay, no obligation, but I'll be there. Same goes for anyone else here. I'm kind of doxed, I would say, at this point. I don't think I'll be wearing a Monero shirt at the Bitcoin conference. I think I'd probably get kicked out, sadly, but I would if I could. So I'll still be there.
You say that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to see if there are other Monero heads who are going to be at the Bitcoin conference or just in Miami during that time. Are we doing something over that weekend to just kind of get everybody together?
Not that I know of, but I think that's a really, really good idea. Like, I love that idea. Let's make something happen. Vic responded like 600 Hondas, so I think he's pretty interested too. I know he's going to be there. So I've been
bugging Vic a bunch about this already because I just found out you're coming, but I know he's been coming for a while now, and I think Doug and Sue are going to be there. It's going to be fun.
Welcome back to the stage, Vic. Thanks for your enthusiasm there a second ago.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing planned, but yeah, if everybody's there, we should probably maybe on, I guess Friday night, meet somewhere. We can figure it out once we're there.
Awesome. Yeah, let's let the group chat going after this.
Yeah.
See, these are productive. It's not just us showing Monero all the time. It's us planning other future opportunities to get together and show Monero, right? So,
Howard, are you going to make it?
It's in Miami. Are you kidding me?
I don't
Dream,
think
Ken, I can
he's
dream.
not a Bitcoin guy, not a Miami guy. So.
Yeah,
Come shake things up.
that's quite all right.
But back to Tyler for a second. Tyler, I wanted to ask you, 'cause I know you came to Monero relatively recently, and you were, heavy into Bitcoin before that. What was the tipping point for you? What led you to that step to sort of explore Monero more seriously?
So I guess the long and short of it is just kind of listening to Modell and his advocacy of CoinJoin, what was formerly Wasabi. I think he recommends Whirlpool now. So started to hear that it was kind of an outstanding issue, and kind of the more you learn about Bitcoin, the more you learn about some of its vulnerabilities. So I'd always heard about Monero, and I think it really clicked when I saw that some of the ransomware and dark markets were switching to Monero. And I said to myself, I've seen this narrative before, let me look into this, and realized Monero has kind of the same attributes that Bitcoin has, probably even more advanced attributes. So kind of looking into it more, and was listening to some podcasts, Monero Talk, and was like, there's not a whole lot of content out there. I feel like this is probably pretty important to get some information out there. I'm not a technical person myself, so kind of view my maybe a little bit of a Peter Normick when it comes to Monero, but I think that's kind of helpful for either pre-coiners or new coiners to Bitcoin to kind of hear about Monero and why, in some cases, it's a superior version.
That's awesome. I'm glad you're exploring that from a Bitcoiner perspective. That's probably the journey that most people have taken. I know it was the same for me, but a friend of mine had told me about Bitcoin back in 2012, and he sent me this article about the Silk Road and blah, 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 and I just ignored it. And then 4 years later, he sent me an article about Alphabet accepting Monero, and I thought, I'm having a deja vu moment here. I think this might be worth looking into. So yeah, that's a journey for many of us.
Great questions. Keep them up. They're fun to listen to.
You guys are all talk. Actually, I got booted off of Coinbase and Gemini, and that's what took me to Monero.
Oh, you're the real. You're the real.
Real criminal here.
What were you doing, Vic? What were you doing?
I was buying anti-Bitcoin. I know nobody believes it, but that's the truth. I was like, let me use Bitcoin for something. Everyone's collecting it. It's just nothing's happening with it. I'm like, I actually want to use it for something. And that's when I tried, and boom, that was actually, I'm glad it happened, because it's a rude awakening of how open Bitcoin was. That it made it, Gemini and Coinbase knew what I was doing and booted me off. And as George said, Alphabet having Monero, and then he questioned, hey, wait a minute, why does this market only have Bitcoin and Monero? Why Monero? Why not Dash? Why not Zcash? And yeah, that's I think a lot of us went through that.
So you're only here because of Coinbase. You have all of Coinbase to thank.
Sorry?
I just made a convoluted thing for Howard earlier. So now I'm saying that Coinbase gets to take all credit for Cake Wallet, actually.
Exactly. Don't say that. I'll probably hear from their attorney or something.
They got money. They got plenty of money to sue you.
Yeah. Hey, we kicked this guy off and he made this wallet, so we should get the credit.
There are stranger lawsuits in crypto. So, Nam, I sent you another invite. I hope that we're able to get you promoted here in a second. I know that I made an extra stage slot for you, so hopefully we can get you up in a second. If not, I'll keep trying because obviously I want to hear from you again. Giannik, are there any other questions that came in the meantime on Twitter?
I haven't seen any others, but let me look again.
Sure. So just as a reminder to everyone in the room, if you would like to send a comment with the hashtag Monero Space, we will be going through those. It was supposed to be me, but Giannik has done a much better job at reviewing them than me, so it's going to be mostly him. I'll keep trying, but he's been really good at keeping me honest at reviewing those. So we'll be reading comments. Sadly, we're not able to promote like 1 million people to the stage with these events. So that's the best way at the moment to send stuff through. Although as KC, as Chill, and Giannik and Deverick are saying, by all means, Sundays, they're far more lax. You got plenty of time to interact with people. Everyone gets invited on the Clubhouse stage. And we'll have some, we'll hopefully have some more Twitter events in the near future too. So, welcome now.
Hello, thank you. Yeah, it looks like working now. Do you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
And what was your process
finally
to join time? What was your process to do?
I clicked a link that we put on the group chat. So if you couldn't see half people in the chat, I mean, I'm thinking. But hey, I have a question about the atomic swaps. It has Monero and they're being offered Bitcoin. Why would they do the atomic swap? Like, why would they take, tainted coins? I'm literally 100% sure that you would only receive tainted coin, on the incoming atomic swap for a Monero holder, for then the Monero holder to give away the Monero. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. If a Monero holder wants to take profit, they would probably go to a listed exchange where Monero still gets traded, right? Like a Kraken or a Binance or some of the others. What are your thoughts on this?
That's the question that always comes up. There's one explanation or one rationale, which is you might somebody who doesn't want to do KYC, so you don't have an account on some of those other centralized exchanges. And the only other possibility that kind of makes sense to me is you're going to keep the Bitcoin that you acquire, you're going to keep spending it within the crypto ecosystem, so you're not concerned with ever need to cash it out or exchange it for fiat. I think those are the only two cases where it makes sense.
But so, Howard, will the crypto ecosystem accept the tainted Bitcoins? Because aren't they? I mean, they're clamping down on the green Bitcoin versus the not green. It looks like it's going to become a bigger issue in the future. They're clamping on authorized, like listed Bitcoin, or not, like previously the darknet market Bitcoin.
Sell it to Jimmy Song.
Confiscated Bitcoin.
Just sell it to Jimmy Song. He said he would take any coins, so you might just sell him all your tainted coins. Is what I'm getting out of this.
Well, I mean, that only works to a point, right? If, for example, if we start seeing more of these compliant miners like Marathon and Blockseer, then it may get to a point where you actually can't do anything with tainted Bitcoin, right? It's possible that we're at that point, but I don't think that's going to happen very soon. And there's going to be a lot of Bitcoin miners who rebel against that and resist the compliance effect. So how that plays out isn't really clear yet, but I don't think it's going to be settled anytime in the next few years. It's not going to be settled in the near future. So let's say in the next 5 or 10 years, if you're busily trading tainted coins, you probably still have the opportunity to trade them to other vendors, merchants who don't care. And as long as they're happy to trade Bitcoins between themselves, you no need to worry about it. It's only if they have to go to an on-ramp, a fiat on-ramp, that they'd have to think about it.
But most Bitcoin isn't traded, as far as I understand, right? Or at least the usage, the utility of Bitcoin's reducing in as far as merchant acceptation. And also when they say, when chain analysis gets stronger, that reduces, I feel like it reduces the incentive of Bitcoin to be traded. It incentivizes somebody to hold their coins, because then they're afraid that, they're like, oh, I've got an exchange. I bought my Bitcoin off of an exchange, so they're clean, and I don't want to risk like going through and getting some mixed coins or something like that. So I feel like the incentive to hold Bitcoin, all of the incentives are kind of just piling up, and they're increasing all the time, whereas the incentive to sell Bitcoin and to exchange it for something else is reducing. I don't know, maybe it's just a feeling I have.
No, I totally agree with you. From my perspective, it has never made sense as a Monero holder why I would want to trade my Monero for Bitcoins. it doesn't make any sense to me.
Right?
But if
It
there's,
doesn't.
no. But as has been pointed out, some people who are primarily into speculating, if they see an opportunity to sell for a margin, they might take it.
Yeah, to keep this super simple, what if someone offered you one tainted Bitcoin for one Monero? Would you try to figure out how to use use that Bitcoin, right? The answer
yeah, at today's prices, yeah.
So there you are. Yeah.
So at a certain premium, people figure it out. But obviously, the Monero will be worth a premium against rando, no questions asked Bitcoin swaps, right?
I think it's going to start getting really interesting when Monero prices start catching up to Bitcoin price. That's when you're going to start seeing, I think, a lot of reluctance in Monero users swapping their Monero for Bitcoin.
I think we're on the same page here. Is anyone in the speakers not on the same page here? If you have dissenting opinions, by all means, you can also put those in with the hashtag Monero space, just because we want to hear them, right? We want to understand. This is the new fancy thing on Monero, and so we're interested to see what the real use cases are going to come out of it. But I agree with you now.
It may just be that the fact that the atomic swap concept has been proven is really the important aspect. Not that people are going to use it for Bitcoin, but that it shows we could do it with some other chain that comes along. If down the road there is something else that is worth swapping to. I think that's really the more important aspect of it.
Yeah, what I want to see is a fully fungible pair, right? Like, I know we can go back and forth about Zcash fully shielded and is it fungible, is it not, whatever, right? But it's certainly more fungible to receive Zcash fully shielded than rando Bitcoin that's probably sanctioned, right? So I would love to see a swap, and that's why I'm really pushing Havino to try and integrate this pair in particular, a Monero to shielded only Zcash. At least then you have a better opportunity to trade in and out or whatever. So that's what I really want to see is more fungible pairs. But there really are, you're hard pressed to find anything that's fungible like Monero. So it's going to be a rough time.
Yeah, right now there really isn't anything else equivalent to swap into.
Yeah, if you did shielded Zcash, you're going to be the one person sending that transaction by the time you start and finalize the trade. So what privacy do you have?
Exactly.
This is still amazing news for Bitcoiners, though. I mean, they can swap to Monero, so I think that's worth it.
I have a feeling this will drive up Monero price, even more than what we've seen already, because think of all of the, the Bitcoin that has been coin joined or has been used on darknets, or somebody who's holding Bitcoin that's not perfectly clean or whatever. I think they would rush to this option, and then so they'll take the XMR from the atomic swap, and then they'll sell the XMR back for Bitcoin on an exchange, right? I think I would expect a lot of those transactions happening. What is your view?
Are you suggesting that those transactions are happening just because they're speculators and they're profiting from each individual transaction?
I think it would be, you know how people use the Wasabi and the coin joins today? They would start using the Monero atomic swaps for the same purpose, to clean their Bitcoin. So what they would do is, or I don't know, I'm just guessing, they would do is they would take Bitcoin that is even, maybe they suspect that it's not fully clean, or it was maybe on the darknet, maybe they received it directly from somebody and not off of an exchange, and they're not fully sure that they have like a completely approved whitelisted Bitcoin. So then what they might do is, with that coin, they might do an atomic swap, get into Monero, take the Monero to an exchange, and then bring it back to Bitcoin on an exchange. So get a Bitcoin off of an exchange. Obviously losing the fees that go in between, but then at least they have Bitcoin that's clean, and that's not, that cannot be sort of blacklisted. We're just getting that through.
The way I like to think of it, like, what if you had, if you were sitting on Bitcoin you knew was tainted, would you rather take 2 seconds and swap it to Monero and then sell the Monero, or would you rather sit through the whole mixing process? You can pay someone else to take, pay the premium on the spread in order for someone else to take the Bitcoin, and then you don't have to deal with that problem. You get the Monero. That's the way I think about it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Although you're still stuck waiting. You're still stuck waiting for the Bitcoin blockchain to confirm your transaction, and you're still stuck with the large Bitcoin fees. But otherwise, sure, that makes sense.
Because an exchange cannot reject. So, for example, somebody with tainted Bitcoin does an atomic swap, gets Monero, and then they go to like a Binance to exchange the Monero, maybe back to Bitcoin. Maybe they just love Bitcoin and they want to exchange it back to Bitcoin. The exchange obviously doesn't know that the Monero came from an atomic swap and from them swapping out of their tainted Bitcoin. So at that point, they've got clean Monero, and they can exchange that for the Bitcoin value. Just feel like it's a way to clean coins. I think it's in a straightforward way, right? Rather than going through, because I saw the complicated process that somebody had posted for the coin join, and I'm like, who's gonna be able to do that? It was really complex.
No, you're totally right.
What do you all think about this developing bifurcation of Bitcoin into KYC and non-KYC Bitcoin? When do you think? I mean, I imagine the end result of this is at some point exchanges are gonna just stop accepting non-KYC Bitcoin if they can't determine the chain of ownership of that Bitcoin. That they're just not gonna want it. What do you think about that? How is that whole movement going to develop? I know Matt Odell is big into non-KYC Bitcoin.
We saw that really good article by some, can't pronounce his name, Raj Bednar. He, or maybe I said the name wrong, but Doug interviewed him. I still haven't had a chance to see that video, but I read the whole article maybe 2 or 3 times just to understand everything he was saying. And I think what he was talking about was like this game theory where the miners don't even need, you don't even need 51% of miners to sort of agree to sort of blacklist certain transactions that they've been told to blacklist from certain addresses. So they would have, even with the 10%, and you know, given that Bitcoin mining is in the hands of actual companies, with like board of directors, with management, like people who wear suits to work, and they report to their shareholders, and they actually, you know, get, I don't know, like they could be getting subsidies for their electricity and the utilities that they need. So all of that becomes like a really big operation. And when they get told by the authorities that, you know, look, you cannot approve these, like this list of Bitcoin addresses, they're and they will get penalized for it, then they will comply. So then he just laid out this really nice game theoretical argument where you see how there really is no way for these miners, because they're not obscure, they're not sitting in their mom's basement, right? They're sitting in like proper offices, they're reporting, they've got probably like financial statements. Look at Hut 8 and other North American miners, right? You're reporting to shareholders, you're listed on the stock exchange, so there's really not much, the scrutiny, you know, 24/7, and these miners have to comply basically. So at some point, this looks like, at least to me, that it could become sort of like a like a soft fork, if not a hard fork. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Howard, maybe I'd love to have your view on this.
Soft fork? What? You're just talking about the division, the discrimination between clean and banned Bitcoins then, right?
Yeah, then the miners that actually comply, going towards the forked version, and that pool of miners would increase over time.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've read through, you know, Jiraj Bednar's article and tweet threads, and that is the conclusion that you reach. So absolutely, you know, and again, you know, the Bitcoin miners are generally these large farms, large corporations. They have all these reporting requirements already. They have obligations to their board of directors and shareholders and all of that. So yeah, they're going to be very risk averse, right? They don't want to get stuck with legally questionable coins. You know, they don't want that kind of hassle.
So what happened to the blacklisted addresses at that point? Like,
well,
would there still be miners that would process them?
It's possible, yeah. I don't think, you know, if you look at the mix of miners on the Bitcoin network, you know, I don't think hobbyists even account for 1% though, right? So realistically, I would say the majority of miners are going to start complying. They're all large businesses. So, they're all trying to make, you know, they're all trying to make their profit. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. No, yes, exactly. So that would make it a soft fork of some sort, right?
Well, it's not like they've forked the protocol, so I'm not sure what you mean by that. It's just that it would almost be the same as, you know, burning those blacklisted coins. You destroy their usefulness.
Okay. So I think that's hugely bullish for Monero. Just all of that process playing out over the next few years.
Yeah, and I personally admire Matt Odell's, you know, desire to keep Bitcoin close to its original ethos, and you know, maintain a degree of censorship resistance through non-KYC Bitcoins. But just the existence of these two separate categories of Bitcoin is a problem, and that's the result of the lack of fungibility. You know, you don't have non-KYC Monero and KYC Monero. That concept doesn't exist. So that's another benefit of having privacy by default is, you know, you get those fungibility benefits, and you don't have to worry about which category your coins fall into and whether the person before you had good coin hygiene or not. That's just it's not fit for everyday use. So
yeah, I mean that's exactly it. If your coin is not fungible, I mean it's not money, it's not currency, it's not usable in either of those roles.
Yeah, even in Bitcoin's current state, I would say it's largely only used off exchange by people that are very, very dedicated, people that are very, very committed to the idea of keeping things off exchange. Sure, people will take it right now, perhaps, but I think the movement has been more and more to be on exchanges, despite rhetoric saying go on and get off an exchange and the like. I mean, it's hard to actually enforce that sort of thing. That's a social challenge more than a technical one. So once you fix some of the technical challenges, it makes the social defense far simpler. Like in Monero's case, it's far easier in practice to say it's unrealistic for exchanges to have to coordinate on approving both ends of a Monero transfer every time. That's far more difficult than just saying, hey, blacklist these few addresses. So it's very different in practice. So I do think it'd probably be a few more years before you really start to see Bitcoin mining pools actively try to replace so-called non-compliant blocks or whatever. I think we're a bit away from that, but it's within the realm of possibility that I'm considering in a few years' time to sort of see what happens. I'm sure some people will try it, but at the moment it probably would be mostly unprofitable to an extent that isn't, and there isn't enough pressure yet to do it, I feel, but it's certainly something that it's good in the Monero community. We're having these discussions right now, and I wish that they were happening more in the Bitcoin ecosystem more than just, but my, free market nonsense, when you have other things like real compliance, real legal costs, real political pressure, and the like that comes into real play. And those are real costs too. They're just not on the blockchain.
So just to continue on this thread a bit, do we feel like all nation states will kind of follow this trend of having this type of compliancy put in place, or do we feel like there's only a select few that will be doing this? That's kind of my question, because I hear from the Bitcoin community just this idea of being able to use these multi-jurisdictions to distribute the mining hash rates, but then we also have to understand that places like North America, they have, especially in the United States, have way more income at their disposal to kind of invest in these type of systems. So I'm just curious if we feel like this jurisdiction play is going to work, where people feel like, oh, let's move our operations to a different to a different country, or do we feel like all countries are just going to kind of trend towards dirty Bitcoin, clean Bitcoin?
Let's play that out. Let's play that out, right? Suppose the United States is like, we're going to sanction entities that mine non-compliant, that mine blocks that include sanctioned outputs, let's say. Sure, there might be a jurisdiction somewhere that's like, you know what, screw OFAC, we don't care about the US, we're not compliant, we have no need to follow their laws, right? Very few countries will do that, but let's say some will. Well, you're going to need that country to also have access to receive, to produce, or have very close connections to a country that is comfortable shipping these assets to the so-called sanctioned entity, right? So you need a level, or whatever it would be in mass, and then be able to attract enough capital to invest in such a daring project, when in reality, all that they're going to get is an extra few dollars every so often, most likely. Like sanctioned addresses are not a huge amount of mining proceeds. Like you could forgo a few bucks a month at most, maybe, in order to sidestep this problem. Are you really going to try to sidestep sanctions as we're to get an extra $2 a month or whatever it would be on average? It's just not worth it. But
yeah, there's a simpler way to look at this too. First of all, you look at the existing banking system and where AML laws actually are in effect. I mean, it's the majority of the world, right? There's some exceptions, Cayman Islands, Gibraltar, whatever. And if you look at those exceptions, all right, there are all these little island territories that don't really have, countries claiming or countries owning them or claiming them or whatever, right? Now, imagine that you're going to be in one of these little principalities like Gibraltar and saying we're outside of the financial laws that everybody else has to adhere to. That's great, but you're not going to run a frickin' mining farm there. You're not going to run, 20% of Bitcoin's hash rate on this little island nation. It's not going to happen. So, realistically, it's a self-limiting problem. Even if there are, these jurisdictions that don't want to comply, they're tiny, and they're not going to have any significant impact on the network.
Try buying a bunch of CPUs that you ship to that you say, hey, I want these delivered to North Korea, right? Good luck.
I think the best example is, even China prosecutes money launderers. I mean, so the majority of the world is going to cooperate on these sorts of things.
Back to what you said, Justin, about 90% of Bitcoin being held on exchanges. It kind of makes sense, when your coin's only use cases number go up, people have no incentive to take ownership of that coin and actually, gain the freedom benefits that cryptography gives you. They're more willing to entrust it to some third party because it's just an investment to them. Whereas Monero is something that if you own it, you're more likely to use it and more likely to know the benefits of having control over your keys and so on. It's just it helps having a real use case is what I'm trying to say, and everyday use of Bitcoin is just being discouraged by most Bitcoin influencers and talking heads. They would rather see you hodl your Bitcoin and until they sell. They just, that's their game plan, I guess.
Yeah, the don't ever use or sell your Bitcoin meme has gone on too much, I would say. It's become reality for most people. So yeah, I just don't, for people that are buying things like VPNs online, Monero is such the obvious choice, I would say. It's just night and day in terms of user experience. So I don't expect that to slow down.
But Justin, Bitcoin has Lightning Network, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, it
all
also
the
has
privacy
Liquid.
problems that we
It
have.
also has Liquid. I'm just gonna.
Yeah.
Let me just rely on somebody to give me coin. Let me have someone else custody the coins for me and like invite me in, and then I'll just do my inevitable KYC process probably to get the money out.
Speaking of Lightning, just to poke at this a little bit, and with second layer solutions on Monero, do we see any type of cross-chain swaps happening in the, I know we just got atomic swaps today, but 5 years down the road or 3 years down the road, do we happen to see cross-chain atomic swaps happening on second layer solutions? What do you guys think about something like that?
So something like Bitcoin Lightning Network to some other Monero layer 2, is that what you're suggesting?
Sure. Yeah, I'm kind of referring to the research that Pedro Moreno was kind of looking at a couple years ago. He was looking at having dual output second layer channels, and he was kind of mentioning that you could do cross-chain swaps between something like a second layer solution on Bitcoin with something like a second layer solution on Monero, and that would obviously bring a couple privacy benefits to the swap, but it still does have its weaknesses as well.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds potentially feasible. The fact that we don't have a layer 2 for Monero to point at right now makes it a pretty nebulous question right now.
I actually got a question in my DMs from an anonymous Monero person. At what point does XMR need a layer 2? What's the status on development of that? Might be a question for Howard. The anonymous.
I don't think we're there yet, and I think we have at least 5 years before we need to worry about it. People have talked about, building a layer 2, and I think the approach we've taken right now is to sit back, sit back and wait and see. We can look at what's going on with Lightning Network and Liquid and see how they're operating on Bitcoin. There's been a lot of research papers published on flaws in Lightning, security, privacy flaws. So it's kind of the same thing that CryptoNote originally did, where the CryptoNote designers saw all flaws in the Bitcoin base protocol and then started working to close them. There's no need for us to rush forward on this. We can let other people make mistakes and we can learn from them. And then when we actually need something, we can deploy something that works. But right now we don't need it. And right now is a good time to observe what other guys are doing and what they're getting wrong. And that's my take anyway.
I think we're agreeing too much. Maybe it's something we need to yell at each other on because we're all in agreement on these things.
Yeah, I'm trying to be a bit of an antagonist here, poke and prod a little bit, but I don't want to go too far.
Yeah, can we get a pirate chain person on the stage?
Yes.
I won't do it.
Let's liven up the conversation a little
bit.
Yeah, because we're all family up here.
All right, I'm now your new appointed pirate chain representative, and
good.
You all are wrong. Okay, you don't have. R is a name you trust. It's just in the name. So you all are. Monero's going to get a run for its money. Okay. I know I'm right.
Yeah, and what about the 90% of coins it mined within, what was it, 2 years?
That's just an incentive to the early people that were believers. Okay.
All right.
I'm sorry you were late to the train. You could have bought in early when no one knew about it, except me.
Yeah, people get out of your Monero IRC channels and explore the world of shitcoins. You might find something interesting there.
Yeah, you were earlier to crypto than I was. I just jumped in crypto in like 2019 or whatever it was. You were here since 2014. You should have known how to pre-mine a coin. Come on. If you don't know how to pre-mine a coin, you have no business being in the cryptocurrency space, okay? Like, that's just the way it goes. Some people like it now when I see, yeah. What else
I think you should be their actual spokesperson, Justin.
Not gonna lie, I think I'd kill it, okay? I think I would, actually kill it. I should start charging this.
Yeah, be careful you don't convert too many.
I think I put together more rational arguments than most of the people I've talked to on this topic.
Clearly, Justin has finished dinner and has moved on to his.
No, not yet. That's almost. That's right around the corner. That's right around the corner. But be ready. Be ready.
What was the alternative, Justin, for pre-mine? The alternative term used?
Oh yeah, it's not a pre-mine, it's a pre-farm, and it was very clear that we would pre-farm it, so it's fine. Like we made it very, very available in line 6,000 of our code that there was a pre-farm mine where you needed to have owned. It was types. I mean, you know that societies need to have disparate wealth levels, so you might as well just lock in, you being at the top of it, I would say, to begin with. That's just good economics. I need some people to be unmuted because I'm just talking to a crowd that's cry emoji reacting. It's just not the same as being in a room.
I think I'm selling my Monero.
Good. See?
It was done completely ethically.
Get rid of the shitcoin while you can. Monero's just garbage.
Justin. I'm dumping it all. I'm going all in on Haven, Pirate Chain. What else? There's some other good ones.
Dogecoin.
No. Dogecoin is
the future.
Giannic, I got some Bitcoin if you want to do an atomic swap.
Ooh, let me think about that.
Let's go.
You guys need you guys. Got to load up on IOTA.